But the interesting thing is that if anyone puts their hand up, anybody who came here on their own expenses today? So nobody. So everybody who travelled, okay, their own cost, company. So everybody that came here as a company expense as opposed to their own personal expense. So in one sense, we've all got something in common. We're all business travellers. And today, our presentation is going to focus specifically on the behaviour of business travel. We're very lucky to have two distinguished guests with us today who will talk specifically about their areas of expertise. I'll introduce those folk in a moment. What we're going to try and find out from you, we'll engage you as much as we can in terms of where procurement sits, or where you think procurement may sit in terms of travel, because sometimes it crosses various functions within an organisation, but we'll talk more about that in a moment. As today is quite an unusual day in terms of what's happened outside in the streets of London, I thought it would be quite interesting just to pick up on a comment by Ed Miliband in his speech at the Commons last week. It's rather amazing to think that two companies who would have been state-owned in the 80s are now very much privately owned. In the travel field, Pickford's was in fact also a travel organisation at that time, and certainly the Glen Eagles Hotel. So how life has changed since the 1980s. I also found out it's quite ironic today that Iron Man 3 has been postponed because of the Iron Lady. So you can't see Iron Man 3 in the West End at the moment because they've postponed it because of the activities going on in London. That's an irony. Even more enlightening and perhaps no less poignant was this observation made by the Human Resources Department. I think they call them personnel departments in those days, at ICI, who remarked on Mrs. Thatcher's failed job application that this was a woman headstrong, obstinate and dangerously self-opinionated. Well, I hope that the two folk that I'm about to introduce you are not considered obstinate in any way. They're experts in their field, and if I'm going to just introduce you first to the lady on my left, Claudia Unger. Claudia works for BCD. In fact, she has two hats, BCD Travel and also Advito, which is a consulting arm of our organisation, and we're very happy to share with you today a white paper that's been produced on the subject she's going to talk about. Claudia works to produce actionable analysis based on sound research of traveller behaviour and industry trends. She plays a leading role in the development of BCD Travel's white papers and case studies and intelligence briefs that we get from our clients and beyond research in other parts of the industry. Prior to joining BCD, Claudia served as Director of the Regent's Business Forum, lecturing on event management and marketing at Regent's College in London. And she also helped develop the curriculum for Regent's Travel and Tourism and a master's degree programme. Next to Claudia, we're delighted to have Roger Peters. Roger Peters works for Capgemini. He's a senior purchasing manager for Capgemini with 15 years experience of working in indirect procurement, including travel and car fleet management. He was previously employed by Exchanging as a senior purchasing manager responsible for sourcing travel for clients in multiple locations, including British Aerospace Systems, Selex, Galileo and Boots. And prior to Exchanging, he was purchasing manager for Thales, responsible for travel and car fleet in the UK. And in addition to that UK role, he was also part of the Thales global travel team based in Paris, which involved global travel contract negotiations in all areas of travel. He claims to have an achievement-orientated approach, I'll vouch for that, with demonstrable results in cost savings, process improvements and the implementation of tools and services both in the UK and the international environment. So two very experienced people that sit on my left. I'm going to talk very briefly about BCD Travel, 30-second sales pitch. We're the third largest travel management company in the world. We're a privately owned Dutch company. We're 25 years old, 11,000 employees, 90 countries, $11 billion of travel spend across the world, and we service pretty much every type of industry that there is across that world, particularly in financial entertainment, manufacturing, FMCG, CG, IT and professional services. So we know quite a lot about corporate travel. What I did want to do before I introduce Roger is just cover very briefly about indirect spend. And the indirect spend, which is claimed to be the third or fourth largest spend of most companies, is corporate travel. So sometimes it's a budget that's significantly overlooked. And today we're going to be talking to you about how to control that budget by controlling or at least referring to some of the traveller behaviour that exists today that we've experienced from the research that we've undertaken. I'm going to sort of give you a brief overview of what a travel management company does. So this is across the board. We do 5 things in our world to make it real simple. The first thing we do is find what you're looking for. And in our industry, we often claim to make things rather complicated in the way that we do things. There's no one place you can go to find the cheapest price. There's no one place you can go to make a booking. There are hundreds of options. Take New York, for example. For just a simple trip to New York, there's over 2,000 different airfares to New York in economy class alone. There are over 30 different fare options to travel by rail from Manchester to London. And in this particular hotel, there are over 15 room rates for the same type of room. So you need somebody with a certain level of expertise to get to that final price that you're looking for and find the best deal. And that takes a lot of sophistication, a lot of knowledge, and some decent systems to do so. The next thing that we do after we've found something is we book it for you. And you can book that online or offline. You can have somebody on site in your premises, as some companies do. You can have it off-site, serviced by a dedicated team of travel people. You can have a centralised service, or as some companies do, they have it sitting in one location in the world, in Europe, or perhaps further afield. But it's nice to know that you've got someone to call on in the wee small hours of the night when you're stuck somewhere in the world, and you just need someone to get you out of a certain country or a certain situation or book something. And that's fundamentally one of the expert areas that we focus on in our business. After we've booked it, and hopefully the traveller is on their way, we bill you for it. And it's a fundamental difference between corporate travel and leisure travel in that in the leisure field you pay for it up front. Any leisure model asks you to pay immediately for that particular activity. In the corporate world, you pay for it more often sometime after it's been booked. And you can pay by credit card, invoice, direct debit, purchasing cards. There's a variety of different ways on how you can settle your particular account. And that can have a significant impact on your bottom line. The fourth area, and Claudia's going to cover this, is once we've done all of that work, we give you data. And it's fundamentally important for obvious reasons that we give you quality data so that companies can understand what's being booked, where people are travelling, are they complying to policy, are they doing anything they should be doing, are they doing good things or bad things within the organisation, is the data telling you what they need to be told, and how do you share that information across your organisation. And the fifth area is actually taking action. Once we've done all of those 4 things, effectively, you want someone to bring you some value. The account management side of the business, the intelligence, the analytics, the real value that's tagged on behind of all the basic processes that have taken place before then, and giving you a decent return on investment. It's interesting, we've just come from another conference that's taking place in Windsor today, where perhaps some of your colleagues who are representing the travel buyer side of the business are attending a major 3-day conference. And there was one card company there, Air Plus, who happened to mention that the way that they're moving forward is working with a corporate card, and you keep that corporate card with you at every stage of the travel process, from the time that you pay for something, you go to the airline, you check in, you swipe your corporate card, you even go to the hotel and you use the same card to get into your room. And that's something in the future that they're looking at, to have one simple card process, but essentially it's a purchasing process all the way through the travel process that tracks every expense and every part of that journey. And that's something that they're working on now. So, enough of me. I'm now going to introduce you to Roger. Roger's going to cover his aspect of life in terms of what he does for Capgemini in the travel world, and talk a little bit about how traveller behaviour affects him and what they do in their policy before we go on and listen to what Claudia said. So, Roger, if I could pass over to you. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I was just looking around to see if there was any of my ex-exchanging colleagues in here, but I can't see them at the moment, so which is quite good. So I can talk about them. You can tell them afterwards what I said. Yeah, I'm Roger Peters. So I've worked at Capgemini now for 2 years. I work in indirect procurement. I do look after other aspects rather than travel. I look after all the emotive stuff, car fleet, employee benefits, all the touchy-feely stuff. So understand where you guys are coming from. I actually think as well, listening to, I only see the previous presentation, but picking up on what was said, you're going to hear the same things again. Probably from me, it's all about the data, it's all about compliance. Capgemini, been there, say, 2 years. Capgemini is a really good cultural company. The culture is good, the work ethics is really good. Coming from exchanging, looking after numerous customers, my life has improved 100%, 120% actually. It's really good. Life's much easier at Capgemini. Capgemini, just in case you don't know, we're a European company with a French head office, to be politically correct. We've got around 125 to 130,000 people work for us globally. We're a big consultancy and IT outsourcing operation. In the UK, we have 8,500 employees. We have 6,000 active travel profiles in the UK out of the 8,500 employees. So a lot of our people do travel. From a global perspective on spend, we spend about 100 million globally on travel. I look after, my remit is part of the UK, but I support the global team as well. So we all work as each country, each of the main countries. There's 6 big countries that will have my equivalent in each country. UK-wide, we spend around 7 million on air, 12 million on hotels, 6 million on rail, 2 million on ground transportation. And again, to give you a flavour, sort of transaction-wide, in the UK, it's about 12,000 transactions on air. We do around 50 to 55,000 transactions on hotels, 125,000 bed nights in the UK, 30,000 bed nights into London. So it's quite a big spend and diverse. The challenge for me is around the compliance. Capgemini is a pretty compliant program, which helps me drive all what we do from a Capgemini perspective. So, just picked on the sort of points to say where do I see, how does our travel process work? So do we have a policy? Yes, we do. We have a fairly tight controlled policy. We have, it's economy class, anywhere under 6 hours. 6 hours and over premium economy is available, and for VPs and above, and if signed off and billable to a customer, we can do business class. We have no first class travel. Rail from the UK perspective again is all economy, even if we go into Paris on Eurostar, it's economy, and UK Rail is economy. Unless, as Tony said, complex fares on rail, you can actually get cheaper first class fares on rail than you can standard economy. So if you can get it cheaper than the economy, then you can go first class. So, from me as well, the big thing for me around the policy in a controlled environment will deliver significant savings, benefits and process savings as well. And for me again, stepping back to look at what we do, look at total cost as well. Claudia will pick up on a couple of bits and I'll throw some comments in now and again from how we do it as Capgemini and what do I see as the benefits coming from it. But from a procurement savings point of view for me last year, I was tasked with a significant amount of savings, which we hit. We delivered £2 million worth of saving on near enough a £30 million budget. And that was due to compliance, hotel switch sale, various programs that we did within travel. And because we have a great auditable program, just over £1 million of that was signed off as delivery straight to the bottom line, so pure profit and savings for the company. So which was a great result for me. When we look at the next thing, how does our travel get authorised? We do have a structured authorisation process. We have billable, non-billable. Depending on which route it will go, will be if it's billable to a customer and it's within policy, it's automatically approved. If it's non-billable, it goes to offer approval. If it's billable and it's out of policy, it has to go for approval as well. So there's a structured loop within that. Hotels, for example, we have rate caps. So we have strict rate caps on cities of what our rate cap actually is. So we have approval up front again within policy on the same criteria as we do for the air as we go through. How is the policy controlled, policed? First one is the upfront approval. Second one is for our expenses management tool. We have a thing called DTX. It's our own hybrid expenses management tool, but it's driven by rate caps again. So if I put a bill in for London and it was over £140, it would get rejected because it's above the rate cap. It would go off. I'd have to justify again why I did it. But if it had done that, it had already been approved as well because it would go through the loop when I'm booking. So it's a double sense check. The other thing we do is pre and post trip consolidation of reporting. So we would do a pre-trip report for anybody out of policy, advising people that they're out of policy as well to the CFOs. Capgemini has 6 business streams. And again, within the 6 business streams, the relationship that I've got here, so that, to be quite honest, from me, from a travel background, from where I've come from to where I am, I'm in the perfect world. It really is nice there. I meet with all the CFOs on a regular basis, so they buy into what we're saying because we show them the savings, we show them who's out of policy, we report on our top 50 spenders by category, by air, by rail, by car, by train, and MISC. I found a new little one the other week, MISC. There was these big numbers popping up in MISC, and we drilled some of that down via their receipts as to what the MISCs are. So it's amazing how many MISC dinners they're having at the moment, and trying to claim it as hotels, but interesting. Influence and travel decision. Again, the company itself, its culture is very process driven because of all what we do. All our outsourcing is all about processes, procedures, and making life easier for our customers. Our guys are compliant, so we'll follow the process. So when I look at how do I need to influence, and the biggest thing is communication. Communicating to them, telling them what I've done, why I've done it, and the benefits of what I've done. The other one about influencing them as well is we are huge on sustainability, absolutely huge. I spent 5.5 hours the other week with the auditor getting our EMAS, ISO 14001 and CDP forms and accreditations all signed off and approved by an auditor. So it's imperative that we have all the data from the travel agency, which is clean. I had to follow my expenses through to the travel agency data into our eco-governance tool. We report on our carbon emissions. And we have to follow everything through, so it's key that the data is clean, precise and accurate. Who books travel? Again, from experiences looking at other companies like BAE Systems, for example, they have a huge booker community, where Capgemini have quite a small booker community. We're very independent. I can work absolutely anywhere. It's great. The technology we have is fantastic. We have we use Office Communicator, but on Office Communicator we have GIMS, which is just like instant message, but we do voice conferencing. Last year we've gone from 1 million minutes through starting off on GIMS through voice to 7 million minutes a month now going through GIMS. 80% of our calls now go through our laptop. I'm linked to my suppliers with it, so my BCD account manager, whenever we talk, I don't need to meet her now. I'll send her a live meeting invite, we talk through headset, she can see my desktop. And it's actually what I find interesting, and I've been to the big conferences with Microsoft trying to tell you the next best thing that's coming. Their basic technology is fantastic, really is, and it's simple, easy to use, and it saves a fortune. If you invert our minutes from our GIMS to our telephones, it actually mirrors where our telephone spend's gone down and our minutes have gone up. It's really is interesting. A lot of our guys book themselves because they are self-sufficient. So we have an online tool, and we still have a phone service as well, because part of my remit, I work for core services, which we have lots of central things like central HR, central procurement, central facilities. So where I work from them, my main objective is my business unit, my travellers are my customers, so I need to listen to what they want. Do we want to drive online? Yes, we do, because there is a cost saving, there is a benefit. Will we push it and publicise it? Yes, we do. Will I turn off the phone? No, because I need to listen to what my customer wants. If people need to ring up, we still need them. And we need them for the complex flights as well, long haul. India, on the slide earlier, we got 35,000 to nearly 40,000 people now working for us in India. So we go to India quite a bit, but we're different places in India. So there's about, Tony might know the answer to this one, there's about 40,000 different ways of getting to India. So we need them for the complex fares. So phone is better. Online tools for me, simple point-to-point, great, complex. Still believe in the phone. Why do we travel? We're very project-driven, so we travel for our customers, and we travel for some internal meetings. Split's fairly low within what we do, 60-30 split. Most of it's within what our customer requires. Because we are project driven, again, what I find fascinating from this role, again, is it sounds as though I'm quite new. It's 2 years, it still feels as though I'm new, because it's like the buzz about the company. I find it interesting from where I've come from, working from Exchange and looking after the numerous customers, like I said. Our guys book a year in advance. Come October, November, they're chasing me for next year's hotel rates, because they will book for the full year. Our travellers are away 3 to 4 nights a week on average. I booked 25,000. Last December, I had 25,000 bed nights already booked for this year in numerous hotels, which for me was, wow, it's coming in. These guys are that proactive about what they're doing. Most of the other stuff as well from internal meetings. Like I said, we use Office Communicator now and GIMS, and moving on to the video conferencing from the website, through the webcams as well, which is just absolutely going up and up. Our European and domestic travel is cut by 20 to 30% nearly. CO2 is down 22% on our CO2, which is great for me on shore, because it's a big tick in the box for me from that side. The problem is now we've got bigger contracts in India, just one in Saudi. I'm shot dead with my long haul traffic's gone up 42%. So good on one side, bad on another. But the guys, it really is the same as most companies. It is for internal meetings, which is limited now because we do push GIMS and we promote GIMS and the usage of GIMS. We travel for mainly customers and the project driven and the sales side of it for project wins. So that's roughly where we are. So I think that was probably all I was asked to cover off. So I'll hand over to Claudia now.
Thanks, Claudia, kick us off on the behaviour and demand.
I shall do my very best. So, I am not entirely familiar with you. I am more familiar with the people where Tony said where we just came from, so the traveller people. And I'm trying to kind of gauge where you are at. So could I just ask by show of hands, who is directly related to travel? Okay. Who has indirect influence in travel and the travel programs in your companies? Okay, so maybe, and just maybe after this presentation, you'll want to go there and say, look, I got this, and I think you should do something different. So before we jump in, I wanted to set the scene a little bit by talking about what I, in this presentation, consider buying behaviour management and demand management. So the buying behaviour for us in this sense is influencing the way travellers plan their trips, how much they spend and with whom, and then demand management, on the other hand, is influencing the number of trips the travellers actually take. And why we looked at this topic in particular is because the industry has been changing, the travel industry, that is, has been changing. And apologies that I also wasn't here throughout the day and didn't listen to all the other presentations that you have gone through in the day, because I think there might have been some overlap just from hearing what Ian had talked about earlier. So employees are more technically savvy, increasingly virtual and always connected. Who here does not have a smartphone? Okay, I'm sorry to out you, but did you raise your hand, Tony? So yeah, you can see it's becoming more popular. Actually, I asked the question the other way around early on today, and I couldn't see if anybody didn't have a smartphone, so I thought I needed to change the question. So more people use consumer technology at work, right? I have an iPhone, I use it constantly, whether for work or not might be a different issue, but I have it and I use it, and because of it I work longer hours. Big data, and that is something that I would also like to put as a question to you. We heard a bit about data and the quality of data, but big data wasn't mentioned as a word. Is that something, do you talk about big data? Is that a buzzword for you? Or can I share, who talks about or thinks about big data at the moment? Okay, in the travel industry, it's the buzzword, big data. Everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon and go out and have big data. And what we see is that not everybody really understands big data. We have the travel data, which you generally get from your TMC, and then you have expense management data, which you could get from your card provider, for example. And bringing those together, a lot of people, and I was one of them not very long ago, would think that makes big data, but essentially big data goes so far beyond that. It's all your social media stuff, right? You look at your tweets and you think about how do your tweets feature within all the other data that you have, which is very interesting, and I think it's coming also in travel, but we're not quite there yet. So people shop around and make their own decisions, which is interesting for travel. I'm not sure if you've all heard about Travel 2.0, which means open source booking. So basically book outside the policy, book wherever you want to, and kind of just feed your itinerary information in a back end so that the company still knows where you are and can comply with their duty of care. More people trust what their peers say over what experts say. And essentially, I'm saying don't trust any word that I utter here today, but talk among yourselves and listen to your own experiences, which I kind of don't want, but I have it on the slide, so I better say it. Business needs new tactics to achieve better performance, and that is why I'm here today to share with you the traveler demand and behavior management paper that we've come up with. So, how do travelers connect on the road? This study was done by Business Travel News, yes, in the US last year. It was published in November. And what they found is that 74% of the travelers actually have smartphones when they travel, and quite a lot of those use them for booking travel or making arrangements while they're on the road. 65% take tablet computers. If we take that one step further, a lot of them are, of course, the younger travelers, the younger generation travelers, because they have it, they've grown up with it, and they want to use it whenever they go on a trip. So, why do we want to influence travelers? You all have travel programs in place at the companies that you work for. We already heard that you all came through the company, so you would have expensed this trip. And then you might have come in via air, hotel, car, which are the big three in travel, right? However, there is also secondary spend, and by that we talk about ground transportation, which is not car rentals, so any taxis, public transportation and the like. We talk about mobile roaming costs, and that can include voice calls or data roaming. Those are quite high costs if you're not careful about them. And then there is a third one, which is F&B, so all your dinner expenses, lunches and all that, because all of that essentially makes up the total trip cost. And at the moment there is not a foolproof way to say my cost was amount X, because there are so many variables that at the moment we can't capture in a good way and link it to that trip. So we're working on that, and we want to influence travelers. This is our new blueprint for traveler management. It's the 4 phases essentially, and I'm just going to keep on clicking until they are all up there. It's the first one, of course, is analyzing your policy. You have to communicate the policy. You have to influence your travelers before they book. You can now influence travelers while they are on the road, which should come up essentially now. And then you want to collect feedback so that you can review the policy once more so that it's a continuous process. And I think, Ian, you mentioned that before, that you have to constantly monitor and actually use that data to enhance what you're doing. So I'm not going to dwell on this. If you would like a copy of the white paper, just come to me and give me your card or your email address, and then I'll have that over to you. I am going to ask a couple of questions, and we're going to do this by show of hands, and the guys are going to help me sort out if I can count or not. So how many of you, and I think we should change this, how many of you have been asked for a reason of travel when booking? For example, for this trip, how many of you had to put in a reason for the trip? Okay, that's about half. All right, and if you do have to give a reason for travel, would you know, and this is more towards the people who are directly related in travel, would you know the split between internal and external meetings? Yes, you would. Can I pick on you? Could you share with us what that split would look like? Oh. Okay. Okay, so what we're seeing as trends emerging is that there will be reason codes. If it's an external meeting, you are more likely to avoid a pre-trip approval process because it's essential to the business. If it's internal, it might be quicker that the trip is going to be cut and you have to jump on a video conference.
Just stop you there. Roger, in Capgemini, what's your experience between internal and external meetings? Would you say that the majority of your travel requirements relate to external activity, or is it how's the split roughly, would you say?
Yeah, most of it's driven by external. It's probably not quite 60-30, but probably not far from it. An internal meeting now. For example, on the online tool, when we're going to book online, if I was to book a flight from Glasgow to London, Glasgow to Manchester, it will actually come up with a box now to say that there's video conferencing available. Do you need it? Because we have video conferencing this site, and have you considered GIMS? And it would give you a link through to explain to you how to do it. So we tried to make it, I'm going to get shot for this, but idiot-proof type thing. So and we need to try and make it as simple as possible for the traveller, because even somebody coming in new to the company needs to find the information quickly, because if we induct them that way to start with, they soon pick up on the process, and the process will continue. And again, I call it the water turret conversation. You said, oh, have you tried GIMS? You know, you tried this. So it encourages the conversation as well to spread the word. So.
Right, thank you. And I'm going to jump on that point in the second phase on the communication and the video conferencing. But let's start with phase one. So these are the points that I kind of flipped through in the blueprint, if you remember all these little icons. So what you want to know is your traveler's motivation for trip. You want to know why they want to make that trip. Is it because they have an important client meeting, or is it because the conference happens to be in Las Vegas and they haven't been for a while and they kind of like to extend their stay? So you want to know what motivates your travelers to travel. It could also be that you find a generational shift, so that the younger travelers are still quite keen on going places because they haven't seen the world so much, while as the more older travelers, been there, done that, and I would actually rather stay more at home and kind of avoid travel wherever possible. So you want to gauge that interest and find out so that you can influence your travelers correctly. A lot of what I'm talking about is not applicable to everyone. It all has to do with the company culture that you find yourself in. If you have a very hierarchical structure in your company, it's going to be driven by the stick approach, as we call it in the white paper. If you have a more Google type-ish company, it would be all about carrots and engaging with your travelers and let them do whatever they think is best. So another point that you want to consider when looking and analysing your policy is the budgeting. You could go and tell the department you have X amount to spend this year and try to be within that budget, or you could say you don't have any budget and you have to justify each trip, and I tell you if you can make it or not. So the zero-based budgeting. Consumer psychology goes back into the motivation. travel alternatives, as Roger just mentioned, video conferencing, phone conferencing, instant messaging. Who here uses instant messaging internally? Right, it's quite a few. So we do as well, and I think it's good. You needed to just quickly get somewhere, get some answers. Partners and experts, you need to seek them within the travel policy, because sometimes when we look at our own policy, we are quite narrow because we work with it every day. It's around us. We are completely immersed in it. And we sometimes need an external perspective to help us see the tree within the wood, right? Is that the way the story goes?
What's within the trees,
yeah. I knew I was going to mess that one up. Well, anyway. Right, so you want to have some kind of partner. It might be your TMC, it might be your peers. A forum like this could be a great kind of start up for a discussion of what other people do within their policy. And then you want to redefine the travel policy. So you want to be sure that you incorporate all the points, everything that you have found out. You want to put that in the policy so as to reflect your company culture and everything else. I'm going to have another polling question. How many of you are using video conferencing as part of your travel programs? So as a prompt to not to travel. Okay, not too many.
I've got a question that isn't on this, so I'm going to throw him on there. So, how many of you know how much video conferencing you actually use? How many hours and how many conferences? And sorry, I'm not being awkward, because this is great. Because when you sit, so I've worked in procurement, and we know what the challenges are realistically. Is getting the data, and how do you get it, and how do you find it? And I know that was challenging. Again, from where I am now, being what we are, an IT outsource expert and the rest of it, we track everything to the nth degree. I know we do 350 video conferences a month. I know exactly how many minutes we spend on it. I know how many minutes I spend on the phone, because that's what our company does. But I think it's challenging for you guys. And then again, the next challenge is to say, well, how much money has that saved you? And again, what we do, because we've got, we call it a concierge service. We actually have a team. When you book a video conference, we have a man at the end of the line who will make sure the video conference is set up for us, it's all there. What he'll actually do at that point, he'll actually confirm the number of people in the rooms and at the sites, and then we take the lead site as the point of destination, and we can then do an estimated calculation of how much we believe that conference has saved us, because Roger didn't have to go to Aberdeen, and Tony didn't have to come from Birmingham, and the office was at Woking. So, and we make an assumption around those from the data that we get from them as well. But it really is challenging. I think that's the challenge in all of what procurement is to justify the benefits of it and the savings from it. So.
It was interesting when we polled this question a few hours ago. There was quite a large proportion that said not at all in the companies we asked, which I think this room here, I would say, are using video conferencing more than the other audience, who are also representing a large part of the UK PLC. So
it's true.
Interesting, yeah. Okay.
The study I was referencing earlier from the Business Travel News, they said that the younger generation use video conferencing a lot more. They have over 40% usage of video conferencing rather than traveling, with Generation X, so those born between 1960-ish to 1980, using it second, that was 35%. And then the older it got, the less usage of video conferencing. Which brings me to my next point, which is the phase 2, the communication. And seconding Roger's point earlier, is all about communicating and educating your workforce that there are travel alternatives out there and how to use them. We all don't want to feel stupid, excuse the language, but if I was in the position, I would want to be trained upon it and just know what I have to do, instead of sitting there and not knowing what I have to do and kind of fumbling about and then wasting 10 minutes or so before I can get it to start. So what we emphasize is market and sell your program to your travelers. They are your audience. It's not only about the CEO, the CFO, who you justify the travel program to, it's also the travelers, and you need their buy-in for your travel program so that they comply. Well, depending on your company culture, of course. Overall, the use of social media can help you generate feedback. It can help you engage with your travelers more, which then again feeds back into the travel policy. So that way you can enhance ownership of travel policy. And by enhancing ownership of travel policy, travelers want to be compliant because they feel the sense that they worked on this and they want to be part of it and kind of be proud of it, maybe, hopefully, and therefore drive your program much further than you could without that buy-in. Especially the younger generations, so Generation Y, those born between 1980 and 2000 approximately, they want explanation, and they want it so much so that they don't only want to know the reason why they're supposed to be doing something, they also need to buy into that reason. If you don't get that buy-in, they will still do whatever they think it's best and not what you necessarily think it's best. And that's why the communication part is so important within travel.
Carry on, yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
I got a question about the social media piece. Sorry, Tony's going to shoot me for this thing. Wasn't the script, but never mind. We have an internal thing called Yammer, so we use Yammer, and again we did that study on X, Y, and everything else. And Capgemini's philosophy is we're all old like me now, and we're going to take on. Last year we took on 250 graduates. This year we're going to take on 500 graduates. And it is, do they need the use of technology? Are they into the social media? Again, if there is any press, maybe but off the record on this piece. I see it as a whinge site, Yammer. You need to understand, again, because we measure how many people are on it, who use it. We will find it would be a little community of about 5 or 6 people that like whinging, but the problem is it goes off to the head of department for one small problem, and the data that's actually on Yammer is incorrect. So we need to make sure that it increases my workload because I have to monitor it from a travel perspective, because someone will give the wrong perception. Now, if I've got 500 new people coming on that's going to read that, it's going to be challenging for me, because today I've got 20 people on there type of thing that whinge amongst themselves. I know who they are, I can control it. I've got 500 new generations coming up with social media usage. It's going to be a challenge for me. So it is the next generation that's a huge challenge for understanding why we do things.
Absolutely. I would definitely say you need a resource to look at.
It's coming, yeah. I'm going to need a graduate to do it for me, yeah.
Otherwise, you have to find a way to do it as the widgets, where you can, where it's not immediately posted to everyone else, but where there's a step in between where you can see, do I want to post this or not? So that's very, very important, because sometimes we just have a bad day, right? And then we want to offload some of the things that we've been through on a business trip, and it might not necessarily reflect the reality of the hotel room or the airline or whatnot. So you would want to be careful with that sort of thing. The other thing that we have seen come through in communication within the travel industry is gamification. And again, I'm going to ask for a show of hands, who has heard the term gamification within a travel program? Okay.
There's one there.
Two?
Yeah, two.
I counted two.
Sorry, beg your pardon.
Two.
So briefly, gamification basically is to incentivize compliance in very simple terms. Coca-Cola has done this very, very successfully in the States, where they have a little bit different laws than we do in Europe. So travelers are given points for compliant behavior, and we have a couple up here where they can be measured upon, including the use of online booking tool, making advanced purchases, and choosing the lowest logical fare. But of course, you could have your own there. So you get points awarded for good behavior, and then the more points you have, the star performer you become, and you get a reward, which could be a weekend somewhere, or I don't know, volleyball. Coca-Cola has now rolled this out in Europe, and it seems to be taken off quite well. The employees are happy. I think it's a bit of a challenge in Europe with the incentivization, especially if you look at Germany. The unions are not going to like it, because if you have employees who don't travel, they can't get to those rewards, and so there is an imbalance. And I'm honest, I don't know what Coca-Cola does for that problem. I think they might still do the dashboards and things, but they won't have the rewards. So at least they still have that competitive element in it. Phase 3, influencing your travelers. Look at your options for pre- and on-trip influence. The order of appearance of these circles and the things that you can do could be shifted around. So up until 4. So 1, 2, and 3 could be any other way, I guess. So we've been looking a lot at behavioral economics. Who here is familiar with behavioral economics opposed to economics? No? Oh, okay. So there is this guy called Dan Ariely who wrote the book Predictably Irrational, which is all about how we are really not rational when we make decisions because of past purchase behavior, because of peers, because of whatever it may be. And there are a lot of concepts where we don't do the obvious choice or the rational choice. And we've looked at those concepts. Dan Ariely is a professor at the Duke University, and we translated them wherever possible towards the travel industry. So one of the things is what you can do with the displays. You can employ decoy pricing, and that works. You give them 3 options, a 4-star options for, let's say, £150 a night in London, a 3-star option for £90 in London, and a 4-star option for £110. The theory is, and it actually works in practice, that 99% are going to be driven to the lower priced 4-star hotel, which should be the one that you want them to pick in the first place. So you place a decoy to drive them to the particular property or airline that you want to drive. So that's just one of the concepts that you could use for the display option. Choices, I don't know about you, but when I get a huge list of choices, I scroll through most of them, let's say 5 pages worth of choices, and try to gauge which is the best one for me, which one do I want, how does that compare to this, and I'm quite frankly wasting a lot of time. So a better way maybe to go about that is, you know how the traveller reacted in the past, what they have done in the past, so why not use that information and give them choices that they have booked in the past and that they have liked, and the technology is out there for that. So instead of giving them 5 pages to scroll through, give them 4 or 5 options for the trip, and they can make a very quick decision based on past purchase history. Explanation, this goes back to the pre-trip approval. As I said, Generation Y wants to get explanations, but it's also fair from us, from our point of view, to ask them for explaining why they want to take a trip. Pre-trip approval is very important in Asia, amazingly important in Asia. You can't really get around it. It's almost non-existent in the States, and in Europe it's half-half, I would say. Who here has pre-trip approval processes in place? Yeah, half-half. Brilliant. I'm glad that worked out well. You can argue that you want pre-trip approval in tough economic times. It makes sense to have them because some meetings might not be as essential as the traveller thinks. Or you might, through using social media, you might know that somebody else is also going to that location and they could take care of that meeting. So instead of having 2 people to go there, you just send 1 person. So there are a lot of ways to work around that and make that more viable for the company, cost effective, essentially. The last step there, the reminder, is on-trip influence. So due to technology, you can now send in-text or text message reminders. If I arrive into London and I don't live here, I get a text message, and that could be tracked by GPS tracking or itinerary based, and it tells me use the Heathrow Express, don't get a black cab. Basically, it's cheaper and it takes less time. Those are the things that we're looking to do now. There will be travel apps in the future that will play a lot more role than they do now, where you can be in New York and just do like an around me and have preferred suppliers, so restaurant programs or the likes. You can track secondary spend that way. You could also send a text message. We have a preferred deal with Applebee's for lack of choices. So you can actually customize that and target your travelers at the crucial moment, and that's called priming, when they want to make up their mind. And if you just give them a little push, they will make up their mind in the direction you want them to make up their mind.
I've just asked Roger, but how do you influence people in CAP? What's the sort of process that you go through? Is it a big stick, or is it
No, it's gentle persuasion.
Gentle persuasion.
Yeah. There's all what Claudia is talking about. There is a package that we bring together. Gamification for us is sort of a no, but because we have 6 business streams with 6 CFOs, the gamification comes between them. What is Apps 1 doing against Aspire, and what's Aspire doing against IS? So because I meet with them on a regular basis, they all want to know what each other's up to and their average costs and the rest of it. So there's competition there for the CFOs, which drives one. The other one from us, guiding them on choice. We have branding and communication. We call our travel program Travel Well, and it has 4 banners. It has Be Well, Be Smart, Be Safe, Be Green. And we just keep communicating through that to give them that. The online tools and the rest of it, like Claudia was saying, is visual guilt. You do get the visual guilt trip to say, well, that's there, it's electronic, somebody's monitoring this, and I know he's monitoring it because everything I book on here ends up on my carbon statement. We give each individual a carbon statement every quarter of how their carbon is. So they're now becoming, although it's not gamification, they are starting to talk about how well are you doing from carbon. Again, it is explaining them why we do things. We have a duty of care, so we need to track everybody. That's why we book it through this way, and this is why we're influencing you to book through the travel agency. We want you to stay in this hotel because of, 1, we know what its carbon emissions is because we track our carbon emissions, we've drawn it down to hotel level. 2, we get commissions, which pays for our travel agency services. So that's why we want you to stay, and that's why we want you to book. So, but it is telling them the good and the bad. Within a choice, yes, we give them a choice, but within a restricted list. And some of the technology that Claudia said about making it simpler for the booker on hotel bookings, for example, if every time I sort of click on Birmingham, it would automatically pop up a list of the hotels I've stayed in Birmingham before. So I can click on that and it automatically takes me through to it, and I just choose the date, and it's the same program. But the hotels are all within a chosen list.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so the last phase, and I'll whisk through this because I'm getting... assess and improve. So after you've got your brilliant policy and they all book and they all compliant, you still want to improve, and you do that through the feedback that you've gathered through social media, through meetings in the kitchen and where not. You also have the KPIs, and we talked about those earlier. Well, I didn't, but Ian did. So you would measure that, and you would have that performance indicators. Take that information and let it feed your travel policy. And you would also want to be able to give your travelers the right information when they need it. So they use smartphones, and we know that it's going to increase. So why not use the smartphone to remind them of policy? Like, policies are generally very long, and I can't remember ours, sorry Tony, but like I would like to be a good corporate citizen, and I can't because I don't remember it. So if I get the reminder that this is what you should do, then I will more likely want to do it because it's my policy. And that's, I think, all I wanted to say. We don't have really time for questions.
I think we're pretty much run out of time. Just one quick question. Who in the audience has a mobile policy within their business today? So you have a policy in terms of what you use and how you use it. What we found very interesting is the number of people, because we mentioned right at the start of the presentation, number of smartphones in existence, where we have a corporate on the one hand that use the corporate phone that they're allowed to use, and then on another private piece of kit they're using the smartphone to check other things and potentially going outside to look for fares. It was suggested even today, as someone pointed out, that such is the information on some of the smartphones now, as one traveller told us that, was at a gate at an airport, the flight was delayed, he went to the gate, the person at the gate said, well, we're not sure, it's going to be moved to a different location in the airport, a different gate number. He knew already what gate number it was because he had an app that told him what gate number the new flight would go from before the person even at the desk was aware of it. Such is the advanced technologies now and the speed at which such information. So it's no surprise that some people are using 2 different technologies, but there's a conflict there in the IT areas of most companies. Do you have a mobile policy?
Yeah, we do. Yeah. The mobile policies, it is business use. You have to record your personal usage of it and the rest of it. So, but from the apps point, where I see where Claudia said, the slide deck there for me is very American centric. I think that the culture is completely different over there. Policy is different from a UK perspective. It is mainly policy driven, like I say, to the restricted choice list. I don't think the technology is available yet to do that with that. But again, technology of where we're doing, we do ISOS, International SOS, for tracking all our employees. They are emailed, text, and send every communication channels possible to tell them if there's an incident or wherever there is. And again, the technology that you're talking about, we're piloting with rail as well, to say that your train's delayed, use this, stay in the office for an extra 15 minutes because your train's 20 minutes late or whatever. So technology's coming, yes. Is it as high as the numbers that they put on there where you said these are the sources people take with them? They probably are take with them from a booking point of view. I think they're quite low in the UK.
They will be lower, definitely lower than what we had there. So thank you very much for your time today. Yeah. And if you want the white paper, just come and meet me later. Thank you
very much. Thank you.